Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here this evening. This is the City of Lamarck City Council Workshop Session of February 10th, 2020, beginning at 6 p.m. To immediately be followed by the regular meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Let the record reflect that all members of council are present. If you'll please stand for the invocation and the pledge. O Lord, with bowed heads and humble hearts, we come before you and ask your blessing upon these proceedings. God, I pray a mayoral and pastoral blessing over each person under the sound of my voice and their extended families, that you will bless them in the way they need it the most and meet them all at their point of need. Father, for everyone that's hurting in their body with disease or dis-ease, I pray a blessing over them and ask you to touch them. We pray all these things in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, and all who believe and receive join me in saying, Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to start out by thanking all of you who prayed and thought about my wife, all the cards and letters and texts and phone calls when she had her heart attack on the 11th. We came home on the 17th, and a couple of days ago she got up, got dressed, went and got her hair done, went shopping at H-E-B, and went shopping at Ross. So she's back. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is citizens' participation, limited to 3 minutes per person. Comments from the public. At this time, any person with city-related business who has signed up may speak to council on a specific agenda item, limited to 3 minutes. In compliance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, the city may not deliberate on comments. Personal attacks will not be allowed, and personnel matters should be addressed to the city manager during normal business hours. So what that means is, by law, we cannot respond to you as a council. We can refer you to the city manager for further action and deliberation, but we cannot speak to you. So please don't think that we don't care. It's that we're not allowed to. Our first speaker is Ms. Geraldine Sam.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and everyone. My name is Geraldine Sam, and I'm here again as I came before you on last week to talk about the discrimination that happened or was happening with one of our female African-American firefighters. At the last council meeting, since then, she's been intimidated against. She's still been discriminated against, and now not only that, but she's been retaliated against. I'm asking that this stop immediately. She is the most senior tenured firefighter on her shift. She's the highest level certified firefighter holding peace officer, firefighter basic EMT advanced certification, and a Class B commercial driver's license. She is an original product of the city that I'm very proud of. I serve Lamarck. I've been in Lamarck all of my life, and I'm proud of a Lamarck product that is here doing an excellent job. She has never received any corrective actions or disciplinary in the past. All of a sudden, she's been written up for little things just because she won't participate with some things. She shouldn't have to play cards if she don't want to play cards. She shouldn't have to play games if she doesn't want to play games. And then she was told the only way to get the dismissal, the right of dismiss, was to resign. She requested more training to be better at her job. She was supposed to be considered for a promotion to engineer, but this position was given to a male firefighter that was white, and then she was demoted and was given a less paying job. The other black assistant fire chief has been fired. And he was in a meeting with her, and the next thing we knew, he was fired. He was let go. But I'm just saying that the position, and then this position that you're going to vote on tonight is an $85,000 position, and it's going to go to another white firefighter. So at what point does the black firefighters in Lamarque get the opportunity to move up and get some of the higher paying jobs? I mean, do they keep being demoted or fired so that we can move other people out of their way? It's not going to happen here in my Lamarque. I grew up here in Lamarque. This is from my Lamarque, born and raised here in Lamarque. Someone wants to know where I got all of my information from. I got it from the grandmother. The grandmother called me. She's been knowing me all of my life here in Lamarque. So if you want to know anything where I got information from, call me and let me know, and I'll let you know myself. You all know my phone number. It's not a secret, but this is going to stop. We're not going to keep just promoting other whites. And the one that they're getting ready to promote doesn't even have as many qualifications as the young black female firefighter have. It's unacceptable to me, and it's unacceptable to the community. As you can see, we came out to support her on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sam. It's okay to clap. Miss Ashley Robinson. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and citizens. I am the black firefighter that she is referring to. So I'm here to speak on everything that she was speaking on, but I have it here in my notes, so I'm gonna follow along on my notes. So my name is Ashley Robinson, firefighter, advanced EMT. I have worked in Lamarque Fire Department for almost 4 years. I'm a product of the diversity program where the city of Lamarque invested time, money, and many other resources to help me and others become a Lamarque firefighter. I find myself in an awkward position. I need to clarify allegations of discrimination within my department against me. Though I will fall short on saying that I've been discriminated against, I will say that there has been significant indifference displayed towards me on many occasions. I want to clarify to everyone here today that I was attempting to gain advice from my close friends and relatives and did not realize I would become the latest social cause. However, after attempting to resolve my disciplinary action, I have found that everything that was articulated by the former Mayor Sam has credence. I was told by the city manager that I must speak before you to deny Ms. Sam's claims of discrimination in order to lessen the punishment I was given. I believe this is coercive. I was also threatened at this meeting by the city manager stating that he would bust me in the head if I did this again, referring to talking to Mayor Sam concerning her actions when I clearly stated to him that my family and friends were the persons I spoke with. The former mayor found out, and she advocating on my behalf. And yes, all this was said in a joking manner, but it wasn't funny to me. I was told by the city manager that no one in his city is to play the race card, as if the indifference that I've been experiencing is downplaying all the way down to a race card. I never said that. I said indifference. I was also told by Mr. Tink Jackson that I had mental issues and PTSD from my former chief if I think I'm being treated differently by my chief. I have endured many things that I would consider biased, retaliatory, and harassing. My fire chief promised me training that I would retain my position as an engineer and has told me that he appreciates me. This is the same chief that took away everything I worked hard for and then in the same breath attempt to discipline me to justify taking those things away and restricting my ability to advance. The question is, was I discriminated against? My answer is, during my 4 years here, I've never had any disciplinary actions or recs. I have been physically assaulted, ridiculed, denied training, and promoted from necessity and demoted only to have outsiders with less credentials and less experience take position I once held. Then I was placed back at the end of the food chain in Lamarque Fire Department for advancement. What I've learned from recent experience is that if I say that I'm not being discriminated against today, then it only ensures my exit out the door tomorrow. In review, I believe the actions that have placed me here speaking before you demonstrates a gross violation of the norms and deserves investigation.
Ma'am,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, that's the end of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Marvin Johnson. And yes, we are limited to 3 minutes, and normally this thing lights up. I don't know what's going on with it, but thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Manager, City Council members, and fellow citizens of Lamarque, my name is Marvin Johnson. I've lived at 3121 Moran Drive for about 4 years. I've lived in Lamarque for 45 years. I played ball at Bobby Beach, Lamarque High, worked as a sanitation worker, served in Lamarque for over 22 years as a mechanic at Duval's Garage. My wife, Tarina Johnson, runs a nonprofit organization, Rena's House of Blessings. Here in Lamarque, she feeds the elderly, the needy, and clothes the less fortunate. Despite the good that we do in Lamarque, my house has been threatened to be burned down. Kids called Watusis, monkeys, welfare breeders, the N-word, threatened physical harm, physically assaulted by the residents at 923 Kenneth Street, harassed by video camera placed 150 feet in the air, video and picture taken over my 7-foot privacy fence where there's a clear expectation of privacy. Also, as we refer to by law as swatting, the criminal harassment tactic deceiving an emergency service by hoaxing an emergency dispatcher into sending an emergency response team to another person's address as a prank or revenge for whatever reason. It's a very serious crime where innocent people have lost their lives. The residents of 919 Kenneth Street done this to me. It is safe to say we all want the same thing, to be treated fairly and with equality. The real problem is perception. The way I'm perceived, because I am black, 6 feet and 200 pounds, I am treated as a criminal. Until crime and intent is present, I contend we all should be viewed as Lamarque citizens. We are, and I am Lamarque. The police are taught to see blue, but we all should always be perceived as fellow citizens, a member of Lamarque's community, whether by another citizen or law enforcement. Put yourselves in my family's shoes. What if it was your family being harassed, discriminated, persecuted, and under siege for whatever reason, maybe sexual orientation, creed, or race? This is not a personal problem. This is a City of Lamarque community problem. Until we educate ourselves, starting with community leaders and law enforcement, we will never be an ideal community, no matter how much pain in new homes. If you're sitting there thinking to yourself, it's just fine, you're exactly the problem. It is that attitude that sits idly by allowing federal taxpaying citizens to suffer injustice. There is no neutral. If you are neutral, you're on the side of injustice. We've been to mediation 3 separate times in the effort to resolve these issues. If our community leaders would just take the same willingness, we can make our community strong and proud. This is my family's plea for help. I'm not asking that you stop your day job, but simply educate yourselves. Racism impacts our social issues of today. We should all have the moral integrity to do the right thing. The voice of the educated, non-biased person says, togetherness, there is no other way. Until justice is blind to color, until education is unaware of race, until opportunity is unconcerned with the color of a man's skin, emancipation will always be a proclamation, but not a fact. Prejudice lies when it looks, squints. You have been put in a place to do great things. Let's not succumb to the pressures of politics when humanity is suffering. Thank you very much, and I would like to ask that could we put this on the agenda for the next meeting, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me.
Thank you. Next speaker is Tarina Johnson.
Hello, my name is Serena Johnson. I'm the resident of 3121 Moran Drive. My family and I moved in July 6, 2016. The third day after we unloaded our things, Mr. 923 Kenneth comes over to introduce himself to my husband. They have small talk, and he ends his conversation complaining about our lights kept him and his wife up all night. My husband explained to him that that's impossible. A vehicle cuts off their lights 3 to 4 minutes. He goes on to say, well, they didn't. My husband say, okay, well, I'm not going to argue with you. You can leave now. Make a long story short, from that day on, the couple have not been nice. They have called LMPD numerous of times with false complaints and made our life horrible. Miss G has referred to me as a nigger monkey bee, and my children, roach monkeys, my grandchildren, little roaches. August 11, 2016, Lady G backs out to leave out her driveway. She gives my son the finger. I have pictures. August 12, 2016, she started walking through the neighborhood talking to neighbors. I have pictures. She started a petition September 13, 2016 to get us removed from our home. Chief told me to talk to them, work it out. I spoke with them. She told me we don't belong here. We can't afford this house we live in. September 20th, 2016, Code Compliance comes to my home at 9:30 in the morning about vehicles and registration. A complaint had been made. Too many cars at my house. I spoke to them and LMPD chief, was told, hey, what about putting up a fence, a privacy fence? We agreed. October 30th, Miss G walking her dog in an alley strip. She has a camera in her hand. Her husband then follows her. Mr. G has a handheld VH recording and starts recording over my privacy fence. The couple have violated our rights and violated our privacy. We made a complaint to LMPD on multiple times. We complied and was told if we put up a privacy fence and record them, charges would be filed. November 9, 2016, we received a news clipping in the mail about synthetic marijuana and affects our community. At this time, as time went by, we found out that we had been investigated because of this, that no such thing has happened, yet another false report. We were cleared by Code Compliance. November 16th, we received email from our owner to give us permission to put up the fence. We put up the fence December 16th, 2016. October 30th, I recorded the Miss G and her husband recording of our privacy fence. Nothing has been made. No charges have been filed. I reported and was told that it would be. As time go by, May 27th, Miss G called me a monkey and did the gesture in her doorway. Me and my family just want to be left alone. We want to feel comfortable coming in and out of our home. We just ask that you all take this into consideration and open your eyes to what's really going on in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jackson, will you get with the Johnsons this week and let's get some resolution? This is not going to happen in Lamarck. This is ridiculous. We see the pictures that were passed around to us, and those kind of actions can't be tolerated. Our next speaker is Mr. John Berg.
Mayor and Council, I am here to voice my concern on the state of the police department building. This is me voicing my concerns. I'm not representing anybody else. There is no end of examples that I could come up with, but I've tried to keep this short and here are just a few examples. The building is not large enough to support the normal day-to-day operations. Every tiny little space that would not be large enough for a normal single office is occupied by several. There is no storage available, so these rooms look like they should be on a TV show. Hoarder, buried alive. The 911 center is in what should be a closet, but they do a fantastic job. Not many would do or could do. Every part of the building is in disrepair. There is a large hole in the men's restroom that is exposed to the outside wall. The floors everywhere in the building have holes in them, and where carpeted, they are stained and frayed to the point of being unrepairable. Any guests that come to the police station are greeted by a lobby that is anything but welcome to our town. These are just a few examples. The building is not secure from varmints. I am aware of 2 rats being captured in the building. The Sally Port, if you want to call it that, does not provide a secure means of transforming prisoners. It also looks like it should be on the same show. Note, I am not saying these officers are messy. They have no other options. They work with what they are provided and do a fantastic job. We have some of the finest and most qualified and dedicated officers and staff around. In conclusion, although it would be nice to have a nice fancy police station like the surrounding communities, they need something better than what we are providing them with. We depend on the officers and staff to provide protection and security for our town. We should at least do the same for them. The need for a more suitable police facility is immediate and should not be grouped with other government needs or desires. My name, John Bird.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Ben Finney.
My name is Ben Finney, and I was a Marque police officer in the 70s when the police department was on Laurel Street and needed more space, which was not available. I talked with officers when the police department moved to its current location. The officers said they had a lot of room. Time has passed, and now they are in the same predicament as we were, no room. The police department needs a new building, not a renovated building. This building needs to be a standalone building away from City Hall and be built for future expansion, which it will need in the future. And contraband is being held for trial, cannot be disposed of before the trial. Then that may be several years away. And once they have the trial, the person, if he files an amendment, it will be maybe a couple more years, and you have this building up every day, every week, every year. You've got to allow for expansion.
Thank you, sir. Laura Devine.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and the good citizens of Lamarck. I'm coming for a good thing that, first off, Laura Devine, I live at 1406 Mary Lane. I know that several of y'all have known about issues in my neighborhood about the flooding, and I wanted to let y'all know thank you for working on that issue and seeing that things are progressing, hopefully, that things are rolling to where there's things that are, for instance, we had a lot of rain one time. Our fleet flooded, and the maintenance department went out, blocked the streets. They even came out with a pump to help us get our street down to where we could get back to work or go places where we needed. Y'all also were notified by me about the pine trees. There was like 8 pine trees that were dead, that if you were walking in the park, you could have been hit by large limbs that were falling, that were just scattered. Even the mill, the lawnmower service that was coming out, they were just throwing the dead limbs up against the trees. I can say that last week, that's all gone. The trees are down. It looked beautiful. My neighbors are excited. So I wanted to say thank you, Mayor and City Manager, for getting that done. Our kids, our grandchildren can go down there and play without being concerned about being hit. I also want to say that I've lived in Lamarck for several years. I was born and raised. I went to Lamarck School District, left for a little bit, came back. So I'm a hometown girl, and have gotten involved with the city and doing different things. And I think I'm ready for the next step. So I want to throw my hat in to run for City Council, District B, because I know what the city has been. I know there's good things coming forth, and I want to be a part of that. And to hear what other citizens, I want to know what their issues are. So I look forward to getting out in the neighborhoods and getting to know everybody. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Herman Harper.
Good afternoon, Mayor Hoskin and other members of the chamber. I'm here today to protest. I have properties on Ball Street, but there is on Albert Street, there is an owner of a lot of dog pens. It's a large number of pens, and at night there are lots of noise going on from those animals, and I'm requesting that they be removed. It's just too many. It's not 3 or 4, but it's a large number, and this is my complaint.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Harper, what was the street? The address?
It's 603 Albert.
Albert.
It's over around by the graveyard.
Thank you, sir. That concludes our speakers. Item number 5 under old business A, discussion, possible action regarding a proposed municipal complex. Mr. Jackson.
Mayor, Council, in your papers there in front of you on the dais, we got the, some preliminary rough numbers back from the engineering firm on the proposal, or on just looking at, some numbers, which is what Mayor Pro Tem Bell had requested when we looked at it. We had the engineering firm come in, sit down with us, go through what our existing facilities look like, and then we went through and talked about what we felt was needed to meet current needs and future needs. And then after they met with us, they went and looked at all the buildings and talked to some of the other staff members as well. So I want to point out a couple of things. We kind of talked about this. I mean, you put somebody in a really bad spot when you ask them, give me a number. Yeah. And you don't let them design a building. You don't let them do anything. They just have to kind of guesstimate square footage and look at it. What's the cost going to be? And if it's going to be built this, in 6 months, it's one cost. If it's a year down the road, of course, they have to kind of factor all that in. So the numbers are probably a little bit inflated because they're very careful to make sure that they don't get in a spot where they give us a set of numbers and then we actually say, yeah, let's move forward. And all of a sudden those numbers aren't going to be adequate to cover it. So the projects I've done with this firm before, never one that's come in over budget. Their original proposals are normally 10-15% above what we actually look at when we get there. But if you'll look through that sheet there, it's color coded because they did it all as one facility, which is what the original request was. And I asked them to break it down and look at the components and separate the components. Kind of hard to look at, but everything that's in green would be the city hall portion of it. Yellow is municipal court. Blue is the police department. However, on page 1, that first section up there where you have some of the talks about the bullet resistant glazing and walls, I mean, that's related to the PD, but it was put into the city hall budget because it was going to be the whole building. So there's some extra costs. And that first block of green up there, that if you didn't do an entire facility, you just did one portion of it, those costs would be spread out across it as well. Looking at the cost estimate for municipal court, based on having a courtroom that would seat 100, a lobby where they could have all their people in there doing what they need to do, the transaction windows, the offices, or whatever. The cost of that municipal court building was right at $2 million. The cost of City Hall, which would be enough to house the utility department, administration, IT, development services, and code enforcement, about $11 million. And the cost on the PD to get all the stuff in they asked for is almost $14 million. So when you add the stuff and move it over, that's probably a $15 million building. Average cost was about $359 a square foot. That includes not only construction, but design, surveying, all your permits for windstorm, all that stuff. So I don't know, it's up to you guys what you want to do, how you want to go, but you asked for some numbers, so I got you some numbers.
Sure.
Mr. Jackson, in here, I see the square footage and everything, but what about the additional parking and everything? That would be required to support all of these buildings together and the public?
Okay, so I don't know if this included a parking lot, and it obviously didn't include the land either. Because we would have to, once you decide what you're gonna do, then you're gonna find a piece of land that's gonna fit on.
Okay.
And if we had a piece of land, that's one thing. If we don't have a piece of land, that's, we'd have to,
They didn't give an estimate of what
No.
size property?
no, they did not.
So this is just building?
Correct. This is just building and infrastructure inside the building.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, sir.
This 13 million, right? 13.5. Help me to understand. Is that a police station all its own?
That's a standalone police station.
There's a $13 million police station.
13.5 plus part of those costs that are in that first green block. I mean, part of that would get rolled over in there because it wasn't included in the blue part.
Okay. So let's say 15 million for a police station. So then if we add a city hall, how much would that be?
That's another 11, well, so if you did the police station standalone, it's about 15. That drops the city hall portion probably down to about 9. Because all those costs, these costs, that first block, the janitor's closets, all that stuff, those are shared between all the facility.
Right.
So now you're doing 2 buildings instead of 1, or 3 instead of 1, so you're reducing part of that. Where you have to have them, if you just do 1, if you do 2, they're there already. If you do 3, maybe you need 2 instead of 1, because like at some of these for the janitor's closet and stuff, I think there was a first floor and a second floor. They did look at a 2-floor approach on this to try to make it where the footprint wasn't as big, because it is a big building.
Yeah. And that was my point. I think that in the long run, we might be able to save money. This is an upfront investment. It's tremendous. But in the long run, because there's shared space and things of that particular nature, we might be able to save some money. I think, though, that if we have a plan to formalize our park system, a master parks plan, why wouldn't we have a master facility usage plan, right?
Agreed.
At the end of the day, what we are doing is we're spending money rehabilitating, repairing, remodeling structures that can go toward a brand new structure, right?
Sure.
So my idea was this. My idea was that we would find someone to do some design on a complex. But we build that complex in phases, right? We design it. We know what we want in it. We see how much square footage we would need as far as space, as far as property and things of that nature. Have it designed and then prioritize it, right? We do realize, and let's understand that a month ago, maybe, or maybe 2 months ago, I said that one of the things that I wanted to do moving forward was work on a police station. That's what I said, a police station. But understanding that we've never had a facility usage plan, I think that it's in line for us to actually have a vision for how we want to do this. If we are going to be the type of city that we protest that we want to be, then we need to make sure that we are doing things with vision and planning. So how can we get to the point? We're looking at numbers. We saw numbers, right? Let me also say that Dickinson, right up the street, has built a municipal complex. League City, further up the street, has built a municipal complex. And so this is doable. We can do this. But I want to know how we go about getting it done. How can we put together a plan so that the citizens can look at and perhaps, if this council chooses, vote on, so that we can have a plan and a vision to move forward with our facilities? How do we get that done?
That's a great question.
Okay.
And I think this kind of is a kickoff to that. We talked about that. I think we talked about it in the budget a little bit last year, but not a whole lot. We did talk about it at the retreat, and we've talked about it since then, that we need a facility master plan, just like we need a master plan for everything else. And what we talked about incorporating kind of into this year's budget cycle was the development of a capital improvement plan. And that capital improvement plan would include all our buildings. You know, it would only include, it includes all our infrastructure, our buildings, everything. And you prioritize, okay, yeah, we want to get a new building, but we also know that we've got some 40-year-old water lines we got to take care of, and we got a wastewater treatment plant we got to build. And so you prioritize all them together. And of course, each year targets in that capital improvement plan can change based on something goes wrong someplace. You can do that. But I think I think that the next, to me, the logical next step of this is for us to start on that capital improvement plan before we get to budget season. Right. So for us to sit down to do not only a inventory of our capital, but an assessment on that as well. So we have a library, we have a city hall, we have a police station, we have all these buildings, but to get a full assessment on those by somebody that's qualified to do an assessment on them, to come in and say, okay, you can renovate it for this much and it would work. You could renovate it and do an addition for this much, it would work. Or you can build a new building and this is what it's going to cost you to do that. And then you can take this building and do whatever with it. Either you're going to have to do some renovations to it to sell it to get somebody else to use it, or whatever you're going to have to do. Because the reality is in this too, even if we could build the brand new complex tomorrow, we got 3 buildings then sitting around. That what do we do with those? Because the citizens invested a lot of money in those buildings, and so we don't want them to just fall apart either. Right. So I think maybe our next step, I mean, to me, the next logical step is for us to start on that capital improvement plan now. Give us a little bit of time to get the inventory done and the assessment done, maybe a month or so to get that done, and then have a workshop and sit down and go through everything in the workshop, and all those ideas then go up on a board, and it's like, okay, how do we get from point B to point A? Yeah. We get there by, okay, this is a priority, this is a priority, this is a priority. They go up to 1 and 5. And then, of course, you got to fund it. I mean, whatever we're going to do, it's got to be funded somehow. And then we figure out how we fund those things and move forward. But then you've got that vision that could be a 5-year capital improvement plan. Most cities have a minimum of a 5-year. It could be a 15-year capital improvement plan.
Right. And that's my point. And let's be clear. I want everybody to be clear. At the end of the day, we will eventually have to build new buildings. It's heading that way. At the end of the day, we will eventually have to build a police station. We're going to have to build a municipal court, and we're going to have to build a new administrative suite, council chamber, so on and so forth. It's going to happen. Regardless of what we think, it's going to happen. So let's get our plan together, and if we can find that complex, that space, that we can build these 3 buildings together but separate. I heard someone say the police department needs to be separate. It will have its own place, right? We can do this. I think that we need to do it because we're going to have to do it eventually anyway, right? That's what I'm trying to impress upon us on this council and those that might be interested in the audience. We're going to have to do it anyway. We might as well get started doing it the right way, even if the last building is completed 15 years from now, right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
And you may, and once you get, it's one thing to sit up here to sit here and talk about, well, we want to build this, want to build this, want to build this, because everybody out there hears more taxes. That's all they're going to hear when you have that conversation. They don't hear how old the building is. They don't hear what's falling down. They hear we got to pay for this. Right. And in fairness to the citizens, just like we did in the budget this year, put it all together. We gave them a list. We showed them this is what you're going to get. This is what we have to do. This is what you're going to get. Here's how we can cut your costs by doing some of these things and putting that money back into infrastructure, putting it back into something else rather than, we repair a lift station right now. It may cost us $4,000 to repair it, or $5,000 to repair it the way we've been repairing it. We could rebuild it for 25 or 30, but we're repairing that thing every year at $4,000 or $5,000. If we rebuild it now, it's going to be good for 30 years. So over that time, look how much money we save. Right. And so that we got to start looking at, because of the state of buildings are part of the infrastructure too, and our building infrastructure minus really the new fire station, our building infrastructure is basically in the same shape that the rest of our infrastructures, and it was all bought or acquired or put together a long time ago, and we've kept it crippled together and put up a wall to make a new office here, and done whatever we needed to do to make it work. Right. But it's never been included in that either. So it's like, okay, we got all of it. How do we get all of it to where at some point we don't have to worry about, then it's just maintenance, it's normal maintenance instead of the kind of maintenance we have to do most of the time. Right. So
I add to that idea. Most important to me is that this is not a process to be rushed. Right. This is not a process to be like, we need this building now, because it's so paramount that we are fiscally conservative, responsible with our taxpayer money, and that we're not short-sighted. I echo the sentiment that, it doesn't mean fancy tomorrow we get everything we want. It's planning for the future in a long-term sustainable way that takes into mind all the wishes and concerns of both the employees of the city who will use these buildings and the citizens who will use these buildings, and thinking about how that will all expand in the years to come, and then prioritizing based on what our resources are and what our needs are and our desires. And so, and on that note, I would love if we could arrange a way to explore and research a bit more these other municipal buildings, and learn the pitfalls and the benefits of buildings that are all these complexes that are together, or maybe more creative ways to use what we have. And then, yes, having someone who has more expertise and knowledge than we do, giving us some advice on things that we could rehab, things we could repurpose, what it's going to really mean, because it's a huge undertaking. Even with the fact that we all know the police station is paramount and must be something that's at the forefront of our minds, even that is a huge undertaking. So I'm really eager to hear some advice.
And let's be clear, for my vote, the first building that I believe that we need to build in this entire complex would be a police station. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to leave the impression with any of our police officers or our Citizens Police Academy that we're saying anything other than that. We are saying that we need to build a police station, absolutely. But what we're also saying is we also want to have a plan for the rest of our buildings as well. So nothing has changed about us making that, or my vote, making that the first building we build. Nothing has changed. We're just trying to do it in a smart way this time, as opposed to maybe haphazardly in the past. So
I concur.
Agreed.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
Item 6, consent workshop, Mr. Jackson.
Item 6A, discussion related to adopting ordinance number 2020-0002, amending the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget for various funds expenditures by decreasing various funds fund balances and increasing certain expenditures to individual budget accounts in various funds, and increasing certain revenues in various funds as set forth in Exhibit A. This is the first reading of this. This is the ordinance that you guys do at the end of every season that balances out everything, so when we go into the audit, everything's cleaned up for the audit. Any questions? Susie's here. She can probably answer questions if you have questions. Standard operating procedure. Item B, discussion relating to adopting resolution number R-2020-002, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Lamarque, Texas, authorizing publication of notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation, approving the preparation of a preliminary financial statement, and approving other matters incidental thereto. This is our notice of intent to go out for the bond to fund the contract with the citizens that we made in the budget. And I'm going to have Brad come up and give you a little more information on that right now.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, citizens. Brad Angst with Stiefel Nicholas. We act as the city's municipal advisor. I have my business partner, David Webb, with me this evening. We're here to start the transaction to fund the TCEQ mandated improvements to your wastewater treatment plant facility. Working with your bond counsel, Jonathan Prells. The first step in this is to approve a notice of intent, which notifies your citizens in a publication, at which point we get into the heavy lifting of the transaction, preparing, offering documents, and looking to prepare for investors to purchase the bonds of the city, which then go into the proceeds, which will be transferred to pay for your project in the first phase. We've used this, we've structured this to work within your budget, using your impact fees, using the recent property tax increases that you went through in this past budget season in order to accomplish these goals. The first financing would take place this spring, followed by completion of the project and the second phase of the financing in about a year to a year and a half out. We've prepared a presentation, happy to go through that, or I can field questions as you may have. Mr. Jackson.
Brad, on page 9 of your presentation, that's where we added in the additional capacity, correct? So they could see that related to.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me preface this real quick. So I asked Brad to give us some numbers looking at not only, I mean, we know what we got to have to get the wastewater treatment plant and the headworks and all that stuff done, but to look at the extra capacity that we had capable. That's what's in here, correct?
That's right. Page 9, this is actually doing some analysis to see how much of a tax impact there might be should you decide to move forward and look into the administrative complex to include the police station, other buildings. We did want you to have some ideas about what that means, the cost of that and how it relates to home values there. So the shaded areas on the right-hand side, there's a column. If you have a $100,000 home value and you were to do a $20 million project, that's about $10.22 a month for the taxpayer in a $100,000 home.
So we just, to give you guys some more information as we start to build through the capital improvement plan on that, you can see what our extra capacity is and what it would take to get to that, to be able to fund a building or two buildings or whatever in there. So I wanted to make sure we pointed.
What's our capacity under our existing tax rate?
Basically the projects we have.
Rate?
Yeah. Basically the projects we have.
Existing tax rate that we went to cover our municipal expansion on the wastewater treatment. What's our excess above that?
You all approved a 6-penny increase on the property tax. The capital financing, this structure currently uses about 3 cents of that. The rest is reserved for maintenance, operations, and other budgetary needs.
Brad or David?
I'm Brad.
You Brad? You David?
Yes, sir.
So, this question. I'm looking at a 20-year maturity, and then I'm looking at a 30-year. The types of projects that we are embarking on and the types of projects that we've just discussed, wouldn't they fall more into the 30-year final maturity? Because of the nature of the projects, wouldn't we be able to go 30 years on a police station, on a wastewater treatment plant, right?
That's exactly right. I'll defer to Mr. Prells a bit, but the IRS determines the useful life of projects and how long you can finance them for. A new building, a new construction typically is in that 30-year range that you're allowed to go out to.
So
let me confirm with Mr. Frills.
That's correct. And then state law was passed. You have to balance the weighted average maturity of the bonds versus the weighted average economic life of the facility. So if you're financing any equipment along with it, it'll shorten the life a little bit. The buildings kind of extend life a little bit. So, but something around that time frame is probably about right.
So a 20-year bond would be $9 a month. I'm sorry, $20 million bond for 30 years would be $9 a month.
$894.
$894.
That's right. Yes, sir.
So that's like $100, right?
On the year,
On a year.
$108.
You can finance $20 million worth of projects for $9 a month.
Yes, sir.
Oh, just check. That's if your house is worth $100,000, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Average home value.
And the Marque is
$143,000.
That $143,000 is the average market value, and what we're projecting here is on taxable values. Taxable value is always going to be
about 20% less.
Less.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to bring this to, and not even a facilities discussion, but a kitchen table discussion, right? Sure. Because that's what it boils down to. Whether it's under the ground infrastructure, whether it's above ground infrastructure, at the end of the day, before we can make a decision, we have to understand it in our terms, right? So again, we're talking $9 a month.
$9 a month, and that's based on the current values within the city. The city grows, and your total valuation of the city goes up with it. That $9.
That might even be driven down, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How much is a Happy Meal nowadays? $6, $7?
$5, $6
I'm just-
bucks. $7.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Item number C, discussion related to adopting resolution R 2020-0003, approving the aerial spraying of mosquitoes by Galveston County Mosquito Control District as required on a yearly basis by the Federal Aviation Administration. Standard redo every year. Any questions?
No, sir.
Item C, discussions related to accepting the quarterly investment report for the fourth quarter of 2019. That report was included in your binders. Anybody have any questions on it? Item E, discussion relating to approving an agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation, TxDOT, to design the relocation of City of Lamarque water sewer utilities that are in conflict with the Interstate Highway 45 widening project from north of FM 519 to north of Texas City WYE, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. Any questions on that? They're obviously, as part of the 45 expansion, they're having to redo some of our utilities, and so it's kind of a moving.
I was hoping that we could, in the notes it mentioned 6 identified conflict areas, and I was just hoping maybe we could get.
Chase it in. You guys want to?
Sure. Mostly it's under FM 519.
Okay.
There's 4 in that area. There's then the large force main that crosses right around Bayou 45 as well. There's one other that's adjacent on the north side of 519. That whole area is 519 and Lake Road is being reconstructed. So there's a lot of conflict in that
Okay.
area.
Are those 4 areas you're mentioning all like relatively close to each other?
Most of it, yes.
Okay, and then what were the other 2? I'm sorry. I just wanna
The
put
other
my
one
notes.
is on Bayou,
Uh-huh.
where our large force main that comes across from 6th Street.
Now, and understanding TxDOT's paying for that.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Did they give an estimate start date completion?
Not on this phase. I think they're anticipating August 2021 to start construction for this phase between 519 to the Y.
Okay. They're gonna place it first, right, before they cut around?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
the
sir.
sections, they'll place all the sections first rather than cutting around a section at a time.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Yeah, hopefully we get through it as quick as we can.
I have a comment, sir. On the document I am to sign, they have put an S on my name,
We'll get that fixed.
so we need to get that corrected. Thank you.
Any other? Go ahead.
Yeah, one more question. So for those areas like where the force main is and under 519, what's, does TxDOT or what are the main ways that folks that are going to be the closest to those areas being made aware of this big change? I mean, are we considering that it's all wrapped up in just our big conversations about the expansion, or is there more targeted
There are
notification?
targeted dates as we get closer. There's a moving target with the utility permit. They're just now currently starting the boards across 45 at 1765. You can kind of see it was supposed to start in November, but we'll send out announcements.
Okay.
There's going to be a significant duration, a construction duration during that time.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
And this is all paid by TxDOT. So the agreement that's to be signed today is to allow their engineer to design it and deal with all the conflicts, and we'll work with them on locations.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I'm satisfied.
I have a question for the audience. Are you all comfortable, or are you cold? Do we need? Cold, yeah. Let's cut these fans off. I don't think they're necessary.
I got it. Which one is it? I don't want to. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Ready, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Item number F, discussion relating to approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Lamarque, the Texas City Independent School District pursuant to Senate Bill 11, and authorizing the mayor to execute the MOU. We had the chief talk about this a little bit. Basically, by state law 11 required that school districts designate a primary department if there is an incident that happens at the school. This MOU designates the Lamarque Police Department as the primary for Lamarque High School, correct, chief?
Yes, well, this MOU just spells out everything that the police department and the police department and the school district does together when responding to any kind of events that happen on or near the school grounds, right? Whether it be the high school or the elementary, the school and the temporary school on Bayou and ultimately the permanent school on Bayou.
Required under law. We don't really have any choice. Dara reviewed it. She was okay with it.
That's good to know. I just had a couple of, I think, laypersons, non-police persons questions about some of the things that were in there. Like, so it makes sense, right, that you have to develop a chain of command and authority so that there's not confusion, since it's, you know, these two big entities working together. What sort of freedom does the LMPD have, say you learn of something that's happening on one of these campuses that, you know, you feel requires police intervention? How does that, do you have the freedom to then go over there and make inquiries? Do you have to reach out to TCISD first? How does that work?
What we would do in that situation is immediately reach out to TCISD and let them know the intelligence that we got. And it goes the other way as well. And it has happened where the ISD with certain, without going too deep into the intelligence, they learned of intelligence in the community they felt we needed to be aware of as well. They immediately got on the phone with us and told us what was going on, and it helped us out in a proactive response to an issue. So yeah, what would happen is we would immediately get on the phone and inform them of what we know, and if they say, please come help, we come help.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. But otherwise, it's you know, if it's done,
Correct.
then they have it with the police officers that are there. Okay. In section 4.3, it mentions appointing a day-to-day point of contact for non-emergency functions, such as event planning and public relations, and this just kicked up for me all the discussion we'd had about the ability for our PD to get to go into the school and talk about the various videos that we have, de-escalation training, all different kinds of things. Do we know who their contact person is for this already?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have them in my phone, and I
Great.
3 of them, and I can, if I can't reach one, I can reach
And are you
somebody.
then, does that mean you, chief, are the main person for us that they talk to?
Ultimately, and likewise, if they can't get a hold of me, they then go to my second in command.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had a real layperson's question about the software and monitoring systems that are mentioned in the MOU,
Right.
the Mutual Link and the Share 911. I was just hoping you would tell me a little bit about what those are.
What it is a Mutual Link is a software that allows the police department to see and hear something that is going on inside of the school. If there is a notification that goes out and the button is, the switch is flipped, then we in the dispatch center will have a live feed of what's going on in the school grounds.
Oh, okay.
So, right.
And it's only turned on in...
It's only turned on when it's activated by the school district. Correct.
Okay. Okay. And what about Share 911? Is that... It says it's the mass notification and emergency operations system. I was just
Yeah, it's pretty much similar to our Connect CTY, where it goes out to all the PSAP's public safety answering points.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Well, stay close because you'll be back up here in just a second. Discussion related to adopting an updated procurement policy. I want to have Dara talk to you about this real quick. Susie's here if you need to answer questions. This is related to our GLO grants.
So our grant coordinator has said that we have to adopt an updated procurement policy. They sent their requirements, which is the GLO version, but as you can imagine, that doesn't include some of our state law requirements. So the updated version you have in front of you includes all the state law provisions and tries to make it consistent with our existing Chapter 2 requirements for procurement. This all, we were told, had to be done immediately in order to be tied to those grant funds. So we're going to go ahead and comply and make GLO happy, but we'll be doing a more thorough rewrite of this, sitting down with Mr. Jackson and with Ms. Coot to make sure that it really matches what the city needs, and we've got all the I's dotted and T's crossed.
Well, we were given pretty short notice, and this one it's not gonna get us in any trouble. It functions for now. We just need to probably flesh it out a little bit more. But we don't want any holdups as we move forward with our GLO grants. Any other questions on that? Questions? Okay, item number H, discussion relating to approving a mutual aid agreement with the Texas City Police Department, including creation of a SWAT team and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement. Chief?
So as council knows, the city of Texas City and the city of Lamarque have an invisible line that separates the two. It is one community. It's and if you ask most people, they don't know where that line is. So it's incumbent upon the police departments for our two cities to work together to provide public safety for our citizens. And when I say our citizens, it's the citizens of the community that we live in. An ugly part of law enforcement necessitates SWAT teams. I mean, there is a need for them. So in Texas City Police Department has a SWAT team. We have a SRT team, Special Response Team. They do the same thing. If there's an event, if there's an incident that necessitates the response of our two tactical teams, they need to be able to work together seamlessly, know each other's equipment, know each other's training, know each other's signals. They need to be able to come together and become one unit. So that's the reason why they're putting together. We already do we do training with them on a regular basis. I'll just say regular basis. What this is an agreement between the two, so that of course we know our responsibilities and we know our boundaries. And it's just a written agreement between the city of Texas City and the city of Lamarque for the formation of this joint response team that, if necessary, will respond to an incident together.
You're already doing it, right?
We're already doing it.
Okay.
Just for the public clarification, the leadership under the thing comes whoever requests the help, whichever community, whether it's Texas City or Lamarque, the one that is requesting the team to be deployed, they're the ones that will lead and be in charge of that particular operation.
If Lamarque personnel go to Texas City, they're under the authority of the Texas City Police Department's administration, and vice versa. If they come here, I'm in charge, or we're in charge.
This is the first agreement of its kind for us, correct?
This is the first agreement with Texas City Police Department. The county of Galveston had a interlocal working agreement with all of the municipalities. We've had that, but this is the first time Texas City Police Department and Lamarque Police Department has had this interlocal agreement, this MOU.
I'm gonna ask you this, Chief, and I'm not trying to put Derek on the spot. I'm just curious. Do we have an agreement with Precinct 3?
I don't believe that we have a cooperative working agreement with Precinct 3.
We used to, right?
I don't know if we've ever had anything in writing that I know of. I don't believe that we've had anything in writing with them. Now, the Precinct 3 and the Lamarque Police Department, they work together frequently. We'll call them whenever we have an issue of a civil matter that arises, because they are the subject matter experts when it comes to civil matters. So, and our guys, they just don't know as much as Precinct 3 does about civil matters.
Here's what I'm asking. Just asking, because I'm not a police officer and I'm just a citizen when it comes to this. Is there any advantage for us as a city to perhaps enter into a similar agreement with Precinct 3, understanding that they are officed in Lamarque and they probably have a whole different take on the community as far as crime and crime prevention than maybe some other communities?
It's definitely something that we can look at for sure.
They deal with a lot with juvenile issues and things like that.
Right. And when we had the joint operation at the high school, the drill that took place when school wasn't in, Precinct 3 participated in that as well, and that was a multi-agency operation, multi-agency training event that occurred with Texas City ISD. So yes, definitely something we can look into. I'll speak with Constable Rose on that.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
All right.
Was there anything that was a particular impetus for needing this agreement now, or was it more just housekeeping? Because
Housekeeping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That we've been training together for maybe about 3 or 4 months, and we realized, okay, so this is something that's obviously working. We need to put something together that formalizes this venture.
Okay, so the teaming together and the resolve to say Lamarque and Texas City are one and the same, we should train together and treat it as such, that's a relatively new thing in terms of formalized training of bringing you two together?
Yes,
Okay.
formalized training.
Okay.
The Texas City Police Department, Lamarque Police Department has been working side by side for decades.
Right.
So that's always been, the patrol division has always worked side by side. And we have had to call for Texas City's SWAT team to assist in years past, and they came over without hesitation.
Right.
But now this formalizes our.
But they came over just under the regular mutual aid agreement.
They came over just at the request of the police department, right?
You may be seeing an impetus for this post Hurricane Harvey as the FEMA audits are happening, because a lot of cities have mutual aid agreements that have been in place for a very long time, but they're not always in writing. So there's more of that happening.
And it makes perfect sense, I think, especially if you've begun formalized joint training. And so when it says, here in our notes that it's creating a SWAT team, that basically means it's giving the name SWAT team to the two groups coming together, or is it changing the name of our SRT to a SWAT team?
No, we still have our special response team.
Okay.
They still have their SWAT team. But whenever if I were to go out on the street and ask somebody if they know what a SRT team is, they would say no. But if I asked them if they knew what a SWAT team was, oh yeah, of course. Okay. So it's just being recognized under a.
Okay. Yeah. And, sorry, more questions. I got a lot of them here. Then, what are the? First of all, I think this sounds great, and I love that the two departments are working together. It makes perfect sense. Just trying to make sure I get all of my questions answered in case anyone calls me and asks these questions. The de-escalation training, I know that I, was pretty adamant about when we were doing budget, and I know has already taken place.
Yes, it has.
And I know you did the type where it was, now we have folks who can lead that training for others. Does Texas City PD undergo that kind of training?
I don't know if they underwent the exact same training that we went through, but all police officers go through de-escalation training. Right. Now, understand that de-escalation training wasn't geared towards our special response team.
Correct.
That de-escalation training was administered to all the personnel in the police department, specifically targeting the patrol officers who go out and answer calls on a daily basis. Right. So. And as far as what training the patrol officers in Texas City have received regarding de-escalation, I can't speak to that.
Okay. Okay, I think that's good. If I have other questions, I'll just get them. Thank you.
Anything else, guys? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item I, discussion relating to ratifying city manager's non-binding agreement between the International Association of Firefighters Local 3282 and the City of Lamarque creating and funding a new classification of deputy fire chief. As required at one of the agreements post CBA, sat down with the leadership from the fire department on January 21st. Talked about current goals and where they're headed over there, what they're doing. The agreement we came up with out of that day was that actually having a assistant chief really wasn't what would be in the best interest of the department because of the way the department's organized. But we did agree that the development of a deputy chief of fire operations to put over all that side of the department, because we have the other side covered, would be in the best interest of the department and would help them continue to grow and move forward in improving the service that we're giving to our citizens. So you guys have a copy of that in your packet, and I think I sent it out to you after I met with them. And so it would be budget neutral for this year. They have enough salary savings to cover that cost for this year, so it wouldn't impact the budget this year. And then we'll look at how we fund it for next year with looking at some cost savings and some other stuff to figure out how we get it funded in perpetuity. Any questions on that?
Yeah. Chief Wyman? Sir. And I guess you want me to direct him towards.
That's
Chief?
fine.
Okay. Chief, in this presentation, it says that this deputy chief will not be a part of the collective bargaining agreement. Are we speaking of the person or the position?
The position.
So if you have a member, a union member, that would ascend or be promoted to this position, they are, as a firefighter, still protected under the collective bargaining agreement.
No, if you look at the positions in the sorry, Chief, I want to cut you off. If you look at the way the collective bargaining agreement was done, most of the positions that are the 40-hour-a-week positions were never included under the collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
And this would be a 40-hour position.
I agree. And that's not my question. Is more toward the protection of the person if that person is removed from that position.
Their protection would be under the city policies, the city policy manual at that point.
So let me ask it a different way. You have a rank and file firefighter who you promote to deputy chief. It does not work out. You remove that rank and file firefighter. What happens to that person?
I think it would depend on the situation. If it was maybe skill related or just didn't work out with them.
So you can fire them and they can go home?
Would be based on what it would be, the same as if they were a CBA employee, depending on what the, I think it's kind of a broad statement, sir. It would depend on why they didn't succeed in that position.
I mean, so this position would be like, it's like we had a fire chief open, people would apply for it. So if there's 10 people at the fire department that want to apply for it, they would apply for that position, understanding that it's not covered in the CBA and it's not listed in the CBA.
Right.
And so that, I mean, they
I totally get that part. The part that I'm uncomfortable with, and I wouldn't know why the union wouldn't be uncomfortable with. If you have a rank and file union member that you promote to a position of leadership, I get that part. That's not covered, and that's standard. When it becomes time for you to remove that person, what I am accustomed to, unless they violated some sort of city policy that calls for immediate termination, is that they would then be protected and they might have an opportunity to return back to their original status because they are part of the union.
Yes, sir, I would agree with that.
You agree with that, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'm not crazy, right?
No, sir.
Okay.
I misunderstood your question. You're right. If they had a gross violation of city policies, which would also be typically of a CBA, they would be removed from service. If it was maybe performance related or it just didn't work out, we would have to take a look at our operations and see what openings we had to see what options were available.
Yeah, it's kind of that management issue that you got into in the 70s and 80s where people were really good they're really good at making widgets and they got promoted to be a manager because they were the best person making widgets. Right. And then when they got in the management position, they couldn't do it because they were really good at making widgets, but they didn't know how to supervise people or they didn't know how to do that. So I think if that was the case, then we would, if they were good at making the widgets before, why would we want to get rid of them? If they just got in that spot and they didn't, but if they got in that spot and they broke the law,
right? But here's the issue: if we don't clarify this for our folks over at the fire department, you're going to have some good people that may choose not to accept this role.
Yes, sir.
You get what I'm saying? Because the union provides protection, and so if we're saying to these young men and these young women, especially in light of some of the things that we heard about tonight. If we're saying to them, we want you to step up into a role of leadership, and then if it doesn't work out, we can then fire you and you would have to leave the entire city. Who would want to step up to a role like that? Who would want to leave union protection to be a part of an administration that they could be terminated from and lose all of their union protection?
Well, I think maybe you're missing something in there, though. If you're a firefighter under the union, you still have to do your job. You're not protected if you don't do your job.
I agree.
If you are a management employee you're protected under the city policy. The city policies say there has to be cause, there has to be whatever, and you can't just, and so let's say that tomorrow, let's say that this position already existed and somebody had left the union position to take this position, and he walked in and said, I don't like you, you're fired. Well, then they have a process to come to me in that policy that said, and then he's gonna have to come in and prove that they did something that violated all those policies. There was a reason, and it not only violated all those policies, but it justified termination. And they're gonna get to sit there and say, okay, well, he said I did this, or he said I didn't file this report, but here's the report, my copy of it, I did turn it in. Well, okay. Now, he has an informal and a formal grievance under city policy. He'll go to the chief first, and chief will say, well, you didn't turn in the report. Well, no, here it is. I did turn it in. I don't know why you don't have your copy. Oh, well, then he's probably not gonna terminate it. He's gonna go through the informal process. But if there's something that's egregious enough for somebody to be terminated, they'll have their chance to come in and say, no, that's not true, and prove it's not true. They prove it's not true, they're not going anywhere anyway. Because under the policy, they are protected.
I hear you. I hear you, Tink. I'm just saying to you, I come from a union, and I happen to come from a fire department, right?
Sir.
And I come from a fire department that was in transition at the time that I left. We were getting all these new positions, right? All I'm saying is this. You probably want to clarify for the persons that will take this position all of what you all just said. Because I'm under the understanding as a former union member and a former firefighter that if union members promote into these positions, not through testing, but through appointment, if it doesn't work out and they have not violated city policy in the ways that you all suggest, that they could return back to their shift. That's the impression. That's the way that it was done in Galveston. This is not Galveston.
Right.
But I'm saying to you, you might want to clarify that to your members.
Yes, sir.
And, well, whatever you all just said, clarify that to the union. If the union agrees with it, then that's fine.
Well, and we were very clear in the negotiations about that, and they spoke to the membership after, and there was nobody was upset about it.
That's fine. I said my piece. Chief.
Yes, sir.
I noticed on the org chart, and I'm getting ready to go really, really quickly with you.
Yes,
on
sir.
The org chart, I noticed that it looks like 3 captains, 3 crews.
Yes, sir. 3 shifts.
But we have 2 stations.
Yes, sir.
How many shifts do we have?
We have 3 shifts.
We have 3 shifts. Have 2 stations. Shouldn't that be 6? Right.
Well, that'd be a lot more money.
We're just talking about an org chart, right?
Yes, sir.
Have
Yes,
you
sir. We
planned-
have.
You have 2 stations, but 1 crew.
Have 2 stations but 2 crews, but there's 1 captain over both crews.
Right. But at some point, we're going to have 2 crews, right, at the different stations. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right now, our minimum staffing is we have a medic unit at each station with a minimum of 2 people on it, and then we have a 1 person with engine 2 over here as our first staffed. If we have a second person, they staff over at station 1. So if we have 6 people on that day.
Okay. That's fine. My point is we have 2 stations, right? So everything that we do has to reflect this vision of 2 stations, right?
Yes, sir.
Org chart has to reflect it.
I think it does. It just doesn't show those captains. We just took, because it was very confusing because it looked like we had vacancies that we didn't have funded. So he took them off so it didn't look like we had positions vacant that we just weren't filling.
Gotcha.
Because we didn't have the funding. It's never been approved to fill them. So
That makes sense. Just wanted to bring to your attention. This deputy chief, will they be the training chief? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. They'll actually have a few different things. They'll do our training, which will work with our coordinated response.
Training?
Yes, sir. Yes, that will be part of it.
Will they be the fire suppression infrastructure person? Will they be responsible for making sure that the fire hydrants are maintained? Will that be part of their program?
That'll probably start with the assistant fire marshal, but be working through the deputy chief of ops to coordinate efforts with the crews to go out and ensure that they've been flowed.
Vehicle maintenance?
Yes, actually, this one will be over fleet maintenance.
Okay, here's the big question out of all those questions. In education experience and training, that's page 184. We're asking for a high school diploma or GED. We're asking for them to be a basic firefighter and a basic EMT, right?
Yes, sir.
But when we look at their essential job functions, we're asking them to supervise and train personnel in the emergency medical services. and those personnel are licensed paramedics. How can a basic EMT supervise and train a licensed paramedic? How can a basic firefighter supervise and train an advanced, intermediate, and master firefighter?
Yes, sir.
This person, the requirements that we're asking this person to have are inferior to the requirements that we're asking the rank and file to have.
Right. Actually, for the fire operations with the Deputy Chief of Operations, their training will be geared more towards fire operations, catching the hydrants, probably at first with us, going back to the basics. Our EMS administrator, once we catch up on some tasks that had been overlooked, she'll be doing the hands-on training. She's coordinated a class last weekend for CPR to get our personnel through. She's coordinating with the ACLS. So that position as a paramedic will be doing more of the advanced EMS. In fact, tomorrow with the monitors that you supported, we received 5 monitors in last week. She coordinated the efforts between the paramedics and the advanced at first. They're meeting tomorrow to go through each of the monitors. They have the sales rep coming in. So the deputy chief will be more on the fire operations. Our EMS administrator will be more on the EMS.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And this is very thorough, and I really I enjoyed reading it.
Yes, sir.
But why would we have a deputy fire chief who has inferior qualification of our fire department? Why wouldn't we require them to be EMT paramedic? Why wouldn't we require them to be advanced or master certified firefighters? Why would we make the requirements inferior to even the standard requirements that we want our firefighters to have when they enter this department? I didn't say they have them.
Right.
I said we want them to be basic firefighters with at least a paramedic certification. Yes or no?
That would be my preference.
That's ideal.
Would be ideal. Yes, sir. At this point, we've hired people off the street that had neither one. And our long-term goal is to start building on all the positions and start putting on qualifications and start building them up. At this point, I think we've been struggling just to get personnel staffed, and we've been taken with the requirements that were previously set before my arrival and hiring off of those. But our intent is to start setting the standard, which, as you quite know, will improve our standard of care as we start to increase the levels. And it's going to be more department-wide as we go through and we start advancing and developing each of our personnel.
And let me say this, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I want to say this to you. You've done a great job. You really have. We have 2 new trucks on the way. You have really brought some great things to the fire department. The short time that you've been back, I don't want you to think that anything that we're discussing tonight on this issue, on the issue of deputy chief, I don't want you to be discouraged. I'm just trying to think about these things with you, right?
Yes, sir.
Because these things may come up.
Yes, sir, and I agree. Going back to even your first one.
I want you to know you're doing a good job.
Yes, sir. Thank you. But I mean, that comes to do with the support of Mr. Jackson, definitely the council. You know, going back to the one, I did leave a union position of 17 years to take the job here the first time.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that.
So you know how that feels, right?
Yes, sir. I lived that.
You know, Council, I just want one other thing there. I think we don't want to lose focus on it here too. I know I kind of thought the same thing. We have just, and I'm looking at what we have, what's dedicated to us over there in that fire department. We have an individual in that fire department. I'm not going to mention his name, but you'll know who it is. Been there longer than anybody else. And if the qualifications were much higher than that, I don't know that he would be qualified. But he's been doing it here in the Marque for 23 years, and that experience got to count for something. So, maybe the thought there is, if the higher you set that bar, then maybe we have a guy like that who possibly could be great. That you just take that opportunity away from him, and maybe that's something we don't want to do, because if you have 10 people apply for it, you're going to weed them out based on qualifications anyway. You're going to end up with the most qualified person. But why would you want to tell him, well, you never did anything but stop fires here for 25 years, so you're not qualified?
Well, what I think, and that's a good point, Tink, I really appreciate that point. But I think that we set the standard high, and then we say, or relevant experience, right? And that's all I'm saying is when people look at this, they're going to see something different. I get that there's somebody that can do the job. I would just, if it were me, I would just add a relevant experience. That way Tink can say, you don't meet the technical qualification, but you do meet the experience level.
I don't have a problem with that.
Just something to think about.
Yes, sir.
You know, down the line, you know, as Lamar gets, there's going to be a time when all of our people are going to be master certified firefighters and licensed paramedics.
I think you'll see that in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Paramedics will be the struggle.
So
I
this
think
will
you'll
really, now think about this 5 years from now, when all of your people are here, right? And the person that's applying for this job can be their inferior for real. Just think about it.
Good point.
But I appreciate you though, Chief.
Yes,
That's
sir.
good
Thank
work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Item number 7A, discussion and possible action regarding authorizing the city manager to negotiate terms to obtain a grocery store. Spawned out of you guys have a memo in front of you that I wrote to you, spawned out of extended discussion on another item at the last council meeting. And I've talked to, some of you have come in and talked to me. I've had some conversations with a few of you about this. This memo tonight, I'm asking you guys to switch policy directions with this memo. We have tried to get a larger grocery store to come in here to the city for a while. And I think we need to change the way we're attacking this is basically what this is asking you to do. So obviously we've had a lack of success doing that. And I think that we need a policy that's going to push the recruitment part and how we recruit somebody to come in versus looking at anything else. So I'm asking for basically in this memo for you guys to agree to a policy direction that has 5 parts to it. And the first part of that is to recognize that the citizens of Lamarck need access to a full grocery store within the city limits. I think we're already there. I think Councilwoman McCullough's conversation on the other issue last time, it's not just about the location. It's about the access to quality food. It's about, these people that we have citizens in our community that don't have a way to drive to League City or have a way to drive someplace else to go get quality food. So these other corner stores and other things we have end up becoming their grocery store for their kids. And, so as a policy, I think we need to decide that this has to be a paramount priority for our city. The second part I'm asking is that you guys recognize that through yourself and the entities under your jurisdiction, we own numerous properties that could be used to incentivize a full grocery store to come to our city. And I'll get to that a little bit more here in a minute. Third, that we recognize that the acquisition of a full grocery store within the city limits will be driven by our need to provide healthy food choices to our citizens and not by the economic impact it will have on city taxes, both property and sales tax. We need to look at that store being a service to our citizens and not about the money it's going to bring into the budget. And that's the fundamental change we're looking for here. As such, any lands that we own and those taxes, those potential taxes that we would make off that need to become incentives for us to get somebody here. Zero-sum game. Whatever we got to do to get them here, let's go get them and get them here so our citizens have a quality store to go buy groceries at. And look at this, the building, the acquiring of getting a store here is now a service that we need to take on to provide to our citizens, and it's not an economic thing. So what I'm asking you guys to do is to authorize me to utilize those tools, go get somebody.
And I think what we discussed before, even giving them development rights as far as who comes in beside them so that they have a say-so, so that it complements their store.
And the reality is, and we've talked about this, the reality is if you look past the economic portion of providing this service, when the service is here, the economic portion is going to come after that because everybody's going to want to be around it. But we've got to go get this anchor.
And the same thing could go for a big box store too, like a Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for bringing this so timely after we had that discussion. And I think we've talked about grocery stores quite a bit, but at that last meeting and then when I came in to speak with you and even before then, this is definitely an issue near and dear to my heart. Food access and nutrition access But even apart from that, yes, this is a service we should be providing to our citizens. And I like the direction of this. I think it gives us the right leverage to say, you know, number one, that this is a priority and that we're willing to do what we can to make it an attractive initiative for a grocery store.
Right.
I'm very much in favor of this.
Think just Houston, I think partnered with an outfit in the grocery store. I think the name of it is Pie Burns. So if you maybe call the city of Houston, see how what they did. I know it's a huge city, but I know that they do a lot of that in their inner cities, where they have food deserts and things like that. So definitely, and the store is called Pie Burns. I'll give it to you after that.
We'll definitely look. Any other questions on this one? That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Before we move into the regular meeting, I want to introduce Troop 244. If you guys will stand along with your Scoutmaster, they've been here all evening. Been a very long meeting. We appreciate them being here. That's actually my old troop, 244, St. Michael's Church. And also there's a young lady, a scout from all the way from Lake Jackson, if you'll stand.
Also, she just goes to a girls' troop in Lake Jackson.
Goes to a girls' troop in Lake Jackson and lives in Lamar. Wonderful. That's a long way to go. We need to get you a troop around these places.
Girls are fairly scarce at the moment as far as troops go. So.
Gotcha.
For now.
Oh,
Yes,
bless
for
your heart.
now.
Welcome.
Maybe you'll be that person that starts that when you're a little older. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the workshop.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Thank you, council. Moving on to the City of Lamarck regular city council agenda. Let the record reflect that all members are still here. We have some presentations and proclamations, introductions this evening. Item A will be Excellent Employee Customer Service Awards. Todd Weidman, David Merriman, Sloan Whittier, Ira Yardley from Fire, Patty Reeves from HR, and Kathleen Van Stavern from Code Enforcement. If you all will all meet me up at the front.
But y'all know who to cause this.
Hey, everybody. As you know, we've been recognizing employees each month that go above and beyond in the call of duty. And so this is a message that was received from our very own Lamarck City Clerk about our recipients this evening from the fire department. I know you know what an awesome bunch of employees that we have at our fire department. But I really got to see this firsthand when the curb jumped in front of me on December 23rd, 2019. I wasn't even in the city limits, but Chief Weidman, Sloan Whittier, David Merriman, and Ira Yardley came to administer whatever help they could, along with my lunch buddies, Patty and Kathleen, and stayed with me for over an hour until my daughter arrived, when they helped me into her car. All the time, they were very professional, comforting me with ice packs and jokes, but also trying to convince me to go to the emergency room and volunteering to take it. I believe they all went out of their way to make this embarrassing and painful day more bearable, to say the least. All of them are so very thoughtful, compassionate, and just good people. And I just wanted you to know that you have a great bunch of employees over there. I really appreciate all of it. This crew's hard work, positive attitude, and dedication to the city of Lamarck make them all invaluable members of our city team. So it is with great pleasure that I present these Customer Service Excellent Awards to these great employees. And just an added note, she wasn't even drinking that.
Chief behind you.
Kathleen Van Stavern, Stafford. Chief Todd Weidman, Captain Ira Yardley, and Sloan Witter. Let's give them all a great deal. Come on.
Go ahead. Okay, ready? Is everybody, everybody's upside down with their award? If you're done. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, guys.
You rock. You rock.
Miss Sam, will you come stand with me?
And we're with my Black History shirt on. Just in case you didn't see it, it does say all these names, but it does include my name for Black History.
As it should.
It does.
No, it should.
Office of the Mayor, City of Lamarck Proclamation. Whereas Black History Month can be traced as far back as 1915, but only since 1976 was it officially recognized by every American president. And whereas beginning in the early 20th century, they moved from the farm to the city and from poverty to the national stage in business, politics, literature, and the arts. And whereas well into the century, blacks continue to break the color barrier in sports, business, and politics, and have recently challenged the traditional bastions of wealth and power to gain support at the local, state, and national level. And whereas the theme for the year 2020 is African Americans and the Vote. The year 2020 marks the centennial of the 19th Amendment and the culmination of the women's suffrage movement. The year 2020 also marks the sesquicentennial of the 15th Amendment, 1870, and the right of black men to the ballot after the Civil War. The theme speaks, therefore, to the ongoing struggle on the part of both black men and black women for the right to vote. And therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council, urge all citizens and businesses to join and hereby proclaim the month of February 2020 as Black History Month in Lamarck, and encourage all citizens to join all of us in recognizing the month of February as Black History Month. In testimony whereof, witness my hand and the seal of the City of Lamarck, this 10th day of February 2020, Bobby Hocking, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to let you have that to go with your shirt.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Next, we have item C. It's a presentation of the annual juvenile report. Chief Kirk Jackson. Chief.
Thank you. So the report is in the agenda packet for everybody, and did you want me to go through and read it verbatim, word for word, for the benefit of the audience? Because otherwise I can just touch on the highlights of this.
We'll post it online.
Okay. As I said before, this is one community. That Lamarck, Texas City, Hitchcock, it's one community with seamless barriers. It is our responsibility to protect our citizens and our youth. The youth of our community are the leaders, the public servants of tomorrow. So it's incumbent on us to protect them and to provide a positive image to persuade them to pursue careers in public service in the future. So because of that, our interaction with citizens, we always have to be cognizant of what we're doing. We're not perfect, but we try our hardest to be that positive role model for the citizens and the youth. So we started tracking this data halfway through last year, and we also transitioned from the Galveston County Records Management System Consortium over to the League City Consortium. I would just say that the tracking, the offense categorization is much more efficient in the League City Consortium than in the Galveston County Consortium. The data for offenses that involve juveniles is because of the fact that those tracking criteria are so much different and not as efficient with our old data as what we've been tracking from halfway through the year on. It would be very skewed to actually produce data that says this is the number of offenses that involve children. But I can tell you that in 2019, the police department handled 19,552 self-initiated and citizen-generated calls for service. And when I say that, we can have a self-initiated call for service when an officer's driving down the road and sees a traffic violation or sees a violation of a criminal law that's not a traffic violation, and that's self-initiated. So that does go down as a call for service. So in order to capture those numbers, every call for service that involves somebody under the age of 17, we need to have some sort of tracking criteria that's in the system that allows us to extract those numbers. The CAD system as it stands doesn't have that feature. There is no button on there that says this involves a juvenile. Mm-hmm. This involves a minor. So we have to put some sort of tracking criteria in there. We have done that. And those numbers are going to be solid for the next annual report for juvenile interactions. But right now I don't have those specific numbers. We will have those from this point on because I've got the officers entering in a certain code that allows me to go search for every call that has that code in the call notes. So moving on to analysis of crash records for 2019, because this data comes out of the state's CRIS database of crash reports. All crash reports are submitted electronically now, they're not on paper. An analysis of the 2019 crash report shows that a total of 157 minors were involved in traffic collisions during the year. And to break that down further, 87 of those minors were aged 10 to 16, and 70 minors were ages newborn to 9 years old. But as it applies to the juvenile curfew ordinance, none of the crashes, none of the known crashes, let me clarify, none of the known crashes happened between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. In other words, none of the known crashes occurred during the time period that's covered by the juvenile curfew violation with the nighttime hours. When I say no known crashes, we did have a total of 75 crashes, though, where at least one of the vehicles did not remain on scene for the investigation. So the occupants of those vehicles are unknown to us. I can't say there weren't minors in those cars, but if I were to estimate a number of those 75 that did include minors, I would be skewing the data. So any questions on those numbers before I move on? So like I said, at the beginning of at the beginning of July 2019, we migrated from the Galveston County Records Management Consortium over to the League City Grid Consortium. And as I said, the numbers are so much more accurate in the League City Consortium. So, and if you flip to the supporting documents, you can look at pages 1 through 28. That gives you a breakdown of all the reports that are in the Galveston County Records Management Consortium that indicates a juvenile was involved. Then if you look at the following pages 1, 2, and 3, it shows you the numbers that came from League City. And you can also see that the offense classification in those is much more specific. On page 1 of the League City Consortium's documents, it's all other reportable offenses. As you can see, there's 196. So those numbers, I'm not going to rely on those numbers. I just don't think that they're accurate, and I don't think that they're going to paint a clear picture of what we've got going on here in Lamarque when it comes to juveniles juvenile interactions with the police.
May I ask a
Yes.
clarifying question? So, I'm so glad you started off with this. So what we were provided was 2 separate databases.
Correct.
Records. Okay.
What you
that was not clear to me, and I was like, what are we looking
right?
at?
I'm sorry. What you're seeing?
Yesterday I was like,
What you're seeing is the exact same Crystal Reports report with data extracted from the Galveston County Consortium and the League City Consortium. So it's going and looking for the exact same data in both consortiums, but because of the and I mean I don't want to say that one records management system is.
There's more specificity.
I just think that one's been maintained a little bit better than the other. So your data is going to be much more reliable from this point on. Okay. So during calendar year 2019, we generated approximately 2,500 offense and incident reports stemming from calls for service received. Those numbers are from both consortiums. I took those, put those together. Frequently, an offense report will document more than one criminal offense. However, some reports do not document violations of criminal law at all. Examples include juvenile runaways, welfare concern reports, information reports. So we will actually create an offense report, but there's no reportable offense that occurred on there. While being a juvenile runaway does require police response, and it does require investigation, and it does require our time to investigate, it does not constitute a violation of criminal law. So it's not an offense, a criminal offense, but it does show up in the report as far as action that we have to take in response to the call for service. So an analysis of data from both records management systems was conducted for calendar year 2019. Due to the differences in offense classification between the two records management consortiums, it appears the data from 2019 from the Galveston County Sheriff's Office is too broad to reliably capture crimes in which minors were involved. The data captured from the League City Grid Records Management System accurately indicates that from the beginning of 2019 through at the end of from July of 2019 to the end of December, there were 96 reported crimes involving minors. Of those 96 crimes, minors were offenders in 36 of the reports and victims in 60 of those reports. Included in the 96 crimes, as I said, are juvenile runaway reports, and while a juvenile runaway is not a crime, it does require our time and our investigating and dedicating resources to this. Okay, so moving on, I'd like to talk about the training that we undertook. So in 2019, the police department partnered with an independent training provider certified to instruct law enforcement in de-escalation techniques. This independent training provider is actually an administrator for a local law enforcement training academy, a police academy. So this person is well suited to provide this training, and I talked to her and told her, okay, here's the message we need to get across. Here's the training that needs to be brought in. It doesn't need to be the same de-escalation training that everybody's already been through. We don't want to have them sit through the exact same course that they went through before. So she came in, she administered the training to all of the officers, and it is a train the trainer course. So any of our supervisors, anybody who has a TCOL instructor certificate could administer this training, but we want to put that on supervisors within the department who are in a supervisory and management role. As I said, Marque Police Department, we attend regular training to stay informed of changes in law enforcement practices, as well as changes in trends in criminal justice. De-escalation mental health training are included in the regular training administered throughout each year. And here's what I want to talk about. We're always looking for new training to go to, better training to go to. And as those training opportunities are identified, we will take advantage of them. Now, granted, it's going to be reliant on staffing levels, on budget requirements, and other factors. But as we identify other training opportunities, we're going to take advantage of those in the best interest of the department. So moving on, as council knows, in 2019, we partnered with the Lamarque High School's theater department to produce the traffic stop video, the informative video. We are currently in the process of producing another video. And this video is going to be geared towards our interaction with minors. And the message that we want to deliver in this video is that we're here to help you. We're here to protect you. And I know that youth these days have a distrust for law enforcement. The message we want to relay is, okay, we understand that you have that distrust, but I want to tell you, I want to ask you, when you see us, don't run. If you are in need of help, if you are in a situation that you feel you're safer walking the streets than being at home, come to us. This video is going to be produced in-house. Lieutenant Spruill, who in my opinion is a very capable film producer, he's spearheading this. We also have other members in the department who are on the project team to get this done, and we're partnering with the CPA and other members in the community to get this done. And we think it's going to be a very dynamic video, and it's going to be one that catches the attention of the viewer immediately. Done in such a way that it's not going to be a video that they're just going to want to click away from. So, and we are currently in the process of producing that video. We're going to, as I said, we're going to do it in-house. We're acquiring the video. We already have a storyboard written up, and we already have all but one of the actors identified in our plans, but we still need to acquire the video production equipment. Maybe. I think Lieutenant's going to use his own equipment to do this one video, so he knows exactly what he needs moving forward for future projects that we have. And we hope to have that video produced and finished by summer of 2020. So, and in closing, and here I'm talking to the community and everybody out there on the internet, Lamarque Police Department has several events throughout the year designed to engage the youth of our community. We truly enjoy interacting with the youth through programs such as our Youth Citizens Police Academy, our movie nights events, career day events, and meetings with youth groups. So, if you have a youth organization and would like to have a police officer visit, please reach out to us. The youth are our future, and our goal is to make tomorrow better than today. So, questions?
Thank you very much, and I think that goes along with what we just discussed the other night. And I've already talked with Tink Jackson also about it. It stemmed from Mainland Prep Academy, where we did the book reading. And my suggestion was to have this done by every month by either police or fire. Go out there and read to each of these grade levels, or you pick a grade level every other month, and it would be up to the school. We also talked to Dr. Cavanis, and he will make those same arrangements with our elementary school here. And by reaching the youngest of our youth, they are like sponges, and we go to them. It's not them coming to our events because we don't get them all. When we go to them, we get them all, and they'll form their opinions in spite of other family members. They will make the decision, and this is where we change the outlook and we change a generation. And I look forward to you guys helping to set that up. Thank you.
I just have one quick question, Chief. At some point, will the runaway count be separated from the other count? Because I don't want to criminalize runaways.
Well, they're not criminalized. That's why the council hards.
Well, and yes, and I would tell you that here's the number of runaways that we had in this time, but I couldn't find any runaway violations.
Will you be able to? I guess my
Oh
question
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yes.
So
Oh yeah,
okay.
that's simple. That's just a matter of a couple of clicks from Rosemary's computer.
Okay, that's all I wanted.
All right.
Just to follow up on one thing that Councilwoman McAuliffe asked earlier, So this is the report that's required under the ordinance that you passed. That's why it's at this meeting. But when he's with the data, the database we used before, the data was, I'll say it's garbage. You can't say it, but it was garbage. The second half of the year, the data is a lot better. Next year, we'll have a full year of good data instead of half and half. And so the report should continue to improve over time and give a clearer picture.
On that note, first of all, thank you, because this is exactly the kind of conversation I think that we're supposed to have, and I'm very happy. And I was unhappy when we were talking about it last year when this came up with the lack of data, and seeing some of what's out there and what we were working with, it shed some light on why that's a hard thing to sift through. And I agree, the grid system is much better. Just sort of a housekeeping question about when the way it's presented to us, and then maybe making it a more digestible thing to look at as we go forward. Is there a way for us to, either we do it in-house and someone puts it in a data table, but taking each of these headings and putting it into something, whether it's a pie chart or whether it's just a table that we can compare everything next to each other, just so you can see everything, and then over time we can say, easily look, okay, here's what it was from July 2019 to next year.
That's easy.
So yes, absolutely, and that's really one of what I wanted to do in this. But when I saw how unreliable the data was, I thought, why? I'm not going to make a pie chart with useless data. But as the years go on, and as this report grows with age, I'm gonna be able to put it in. And I think you and I look at data the same way, and I'm very visual, and I need to see.
Right.
I need to see charts.
I don't want to see every individual case number.
Right.
What I want to see is what's the big picture are we looking at?
And the reason the supporting documents is on there is so you can see what I'm talking about when I say that this data is unreliable as it was presented to us.
And I'm glad you had it on there, because you already answered like 5 of my questions here on my list of naming, like, what does other reportable offenses mean that totals 196? Like, I don't want to know that. That's also garbage.
Right.
But you already addressed that, so I really appreciate that. I did have a question about, I had the same question about runaways, and so you answered we'll be able to see that more. Because to be clear, it is not a criminal offense, but it is categorized as a criminal offense in this because it requires
an investigation. Right.
Okay. But I do think it is definitely very clear we make that message that when we talk about it, it's not a crime. And I had a question about who is the individual? It's a woman who did the customized training for us.
Okay, I'd say her name if she was standing in front of me. Mary Pyle. Mary Pyle is her name.
Mary Pyle.
And she is the administrator for Galveston College Police Academy.
Okay. And do we have a plan for? I love that we did the trainer type of training. Are you working? Are we working on a plan of like, what are we doing with that kind of wonderful resource we have now? Police officers that now have this education, and they could maybe go out. They have the ability to train now.
They have the ability to train. They have the ability to train our officers.
Right.
They don't have
so
the ability.
Is there a plan for a continued, like a refresher during the year, or will they then will one of them be the ones that emerges next year and teaches the training to everybody else?
Yeah, and I've already talked to them about that. That we need to have that redone, and when new folks come in, that training needs to be administered to them as well. Now, we're not going to pull one person aside and do training for one person.
Right.
So yeah, no, I'm already working on that. I've already discussed that with Sergeant Rodriguez, who is our administrative services sergeant, and yeah, that's already in the works.
Wonderful. And the video, who worked? You said it's been all in house pretty much. Did y'all create the script for it too?
So yes, I sat down with my administrative lieutenant, and I told him, here's what we're doing. Here's the message we want to deliver. I gave him some of my ideas. He digested it. He came back to me with some of his ideas. We've worked with a couple of other officers who we think would provide a lot of good input on this. We've also worked with the CPA alumni on this as well, and we're putting together a project that like I said, it's not going to be as theatrical or it's not going to be a movie like it was before. It's going to be more along the line. It's going to be a real life video. It's going to, initially you're going to think it is a real incident. It is something actually that happened. It's going to be, you know, when you turn on TV with these body cam videos, TV shows, you're going to think that's what you're looking at initially until, I don't want to go too deep into it, but we're doing it in-house. It is a project that we're working on together with the police department and citizens, and yeah.
The only thing that comes to mind about that is some of the conversations we've had. Well, definitely conversations that I had when we first discussed the curfew issue and things that came up with citizens, things that came up during citizens participation and internal discussions too, is I really hope the video doesn't shy away from sort of the ickier assumptions about the curfew, right? The things that make people go, whoa, what does this curfew mean? Like, is this going to criminalize being black? Is this going to criminalize, a certain kind of kid? Because I think the video, I would trust the PD to create something that faces that head on and tells you exactly why that's not what this is, right. And here's how we are going to work together to keep you safe.
These officers are out there doing this on a daily basis, and they don't live in the pretty world. They live in the world of reality. And I don't think you're going to be, based on what you just said, I don't think that you're going to be disappointed. I think this is going to be a video that is real. It speaks to what's going on in our society, and it's going to be something that somebody's going to want to watch from beginning to end, and I hope it makes an impact.
Thank you, Chief. I look forward to seeing it. That's it for my list of questions. Thank you.
Anything else, Council? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item D, is presentation in engineering projects update from Mr. Ben Ho with Attico. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson asked me to come before you tonight to kind of give you an overview of a couple of the projects that's going on. One, Galveston County Road Bond Project. We had a kickoff meeting on the 21st of January. They finally got the engineer on board, negotiated all their contracts. They're starting to see, you should be starting to see surveyors surveying the roadways, the 10 roads that streets that we had planned as part of this project. We're expecting the first set of design review by the end of March, and bid phase in around October, then construction starting in November, December time frame. So and final completion sometime by mid of next year. All right. The other project is the GLO DR West Lawn and Highland subdivision drainage improvements. Currently, we delivered all the documents, the technical documents, to the GLO in January, first part of January. From our understanding, is currently under contract and under review by the GLO legal department. Expecting an NTP somewhere around April. Then as soon as that happens, we'll start surveying and engineering right away. Take approximately 6 months to get that done, have bid out in the fourth quarter of 2020, and start construction thereafter. So hopefully by August, before next year hurricane season, we'll have that area completed. So
wonderful. You hear that, Melody and Mary Lane?
That's it. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Ho?
A lot of questions that come up recently about the county road project. So I want to make sure that you guys.
What was the last project that was mentioned?
The GLO grant on Mary Melody.
Okay, who district that falls under? Mine?
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
All right. Thank you.
Just making sure. Point of clarification.
Thank you, Den.
Thank you, sir. Next item are the minutes. Item 4, A, public hearing, final CDBG. B, workshop city council minutes of January 13th, 2020. And C, regular city council minutes of January 13th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Any changes to the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Item 5 is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, will you call the time, please? Excuse me? 8:11, we'll adjourn the regular meeting, go into the public hearing, conduct public hearing to hear public input regarding ordinance number 0-2020-001, amending chapter 23, section 23(1), special expenses for issuances and servants of warrants in certain cases of the Code of Ordinance to collect a fine not to exceed $25 for an offense under section 38.10 Penal Code or section 543.009 of the Transportation Code. Anyone wishing to speak? Anyone wishing to speak? Once, twice, 3 times. Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the time, please. Still 8:11. We'll close the public hearing and reopen the regular meeting. Item 6A, under old business, consider recommendation to adopt ordinance number 0-2020-001 as just delineated in the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? B, discussion, possible action regarding proposed municipal complex. Have we completed that discussion in your opinion?
You guys could formalize it, by making a motion to say we want to move forward with the capital improvement plan, but I'm gonna do it anyway, so.
I'd be happy to entertain a motion along that line.
I make a motion that we move forward with the capital improvement plan, in particular with a facilities usage study.
I second.
Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 7, consent agenda. Anyone wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 8, new business. A, discussion, possible action regarding authorizing the city manager to negotiate terms to obtain a grocery store.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Go get them, Tink.
Quick clarification, the terms are the 5 steps, the 5 points.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
absolutely. 9, appointments. Does anyone have any appointments this evening?
I do. I'll reappoint David Pennington to the Board of Adjustment and Charlotte Westerledge to alternate on that board.
Thank you.
I'll also appoint to the Keep Marque Beautiful Association to the vacancy left by Vivian. This will be Rebecca Mold, and you'll find theirs online.
Thank you. I have 2 mayoral appointments that I'll make in a moment. First, let's get a second to his appointment.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I have 2 mayoral appointments that I would love for the council to ratify. Senator Taylor has given me his appointment. It falls to the mayor for the TERS board, and I would like to appoint Alan Waters from Omega Bay to the TERS board. And I'll take a second on that, and we'll do these separately. I'll take a second on that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'd like to reappoint Georgia Meyer Barzilay as a representative to the Southeast Texas Housing Finance Corporation, or SETH. She is our representative representing Texas City and Lamarck. I'll take a second on that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Jackson, do we have executive session this evening?
We do.
All right. Under A, section 551.074, personnel matters, city manager's roles and responsibilities. And B, section 551.072, deliberations about real property. But before we do that, I'd like to go ahead and do our requests and announcements, because I doubt if any of these guys are gonna be here by the time we get out. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank everyone for coming out. I wanted to say this on the record. We heard some hard things tonight in the beginning of our meeting. Some allegations were made against our city. Some allegations were made against our city manager. I wanted to say that we could not respond to those allegations because they were made during public comments. And so there was nothing that I could say. I can't speak for other council members on that issue. But let me say those allegations will not be taken lightly. Obviously, as a council, we're going to have a discussion with Tink, which I'm sure he expects. But I can assure you this council will get to the truth of the matter of those things that have been being claimed against our city manager and our city. So we take it seriously. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and you all will be hearing from us sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would also like to add, first of all, I concur with that. And as far as the dispute that's going on between Mr. Johnson and Mr. and Mrs. G, I think that he asked that to be put on the agenda. I'd like for you to develop some sort of way to address that, Mr. Jackson. And speaking with the Johnsons, I don't know that we're not a court, but I know we've been dealing with this for a long time. And just my personal opinion, speaking as a citizen, you don't build 150-foot towers to spy on your neighbor, and you don't use the N-word, and you don't berate their children and grandchildren. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And we've got to find some sort of resolution to this problem. So I'd appreciate it if you would do that.
And just a quick note on that, Chief and I had already talked about one thing based on what I heard tonight. I don't know that they'll be agreeable to it, but we are working on one thing right now between them. We'll figure out something.
Yeah. Even if it's just a report as on the agenda as what your discussions with Mr. Johnson have been.
Okay.
But he asked for it to be on there, and he has a right to do that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Please go ahead, Ron.
Go ahead.
I just would like to say that especially on nights like tonight, when we have hard things to hear and when we have heartburn and heartache and all kinds of things that are being expressed by our citizens, those are the most important times for us, because
Absolutely.
That is what this is supposed to be. The city is supposed to be a forum for everyone, for every citizen to be heard. And if you can't come to City Hall and make your feelings known and address the people elected to serve you and the people hired to serve you and try to find resolution, then a city's not working. And so I really appreciate the people who came tonight to air all of their concerns. And I would like to echo that it's our job, once we're up here, to try and listen and research and do the best job we can to serve everyone. And I fully intend to do that. And I know everyone else will up here. And so
You're here.
yeah. And on a lighter note, Beautify the Bio is coming up. And I just, that and Keep Lamarck Beautiful's Earth Day. And I just want to encourage everyone to check out the information about those, because they're good things for the city and a great way to put your energy to use that benefits.
You just reminded me of an event. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
I believe Lamarck Kids Fish is before our next meeting. That's
it is.
on March
It
the
is.
7th, a Saturday. We have 200 kids coming out to Highland Bayou.
Mm-hmm.
Each one is going to get a brand new fishing rod and a tackle box, and they're going to compete for how many fish and biggest fish and all sorts of things.
It's going to be a beautiful
Then they're going to be able to bring that same equipment back to BioFest, where we don't furnish the poles, and enter into that contest. So
that's why
we're going to have a bunch of fisher people.
And that's part of why you should, if you have any interest in, do we still need kayakers to clean up on?
I think we have 5 right now.
We have 5.
We have 5 registered ones, so.
Okay.
There's a lot to do out there. I was out there yesterday, and there's a lot to clean up. But I think with 5 and the amount of time we're going to be up there.
I didn't officially put mine in there, but I'm planning on bringing my kayak and coming out. I'm so.
Are you bringing your kayak with the operator or just the kayak?
No, me. Yeah, no, I'm not just gonna throw my kayak. I will be in the kayak. So, yes.
Are you bringing Council Baby with you?
That was the first thing my husband said to me was, "Do not try to take the baby in the kayak."
Right.
I will stop that. So.
At this point, just to follow up on that, we had 200 kids registered a month and a half before the event. We have a wait list right now that has 40, 50 additional on it, so there's some on it, and we're gonna bring out a certain number. Event starts at 8, we'll bring out 20 or 30 of the kids on the wait list at 9 o'clock. If the ones that are registered haven't shown up, we're gonna go ahead and let the ones on the wait list go.
Great.
How many volunteers do we have so far?
We're doing pretty good on volunteer registration. Please remember, if you're gonna volunteer, that includes everybody, including me, including chief of police, you need to register to volunteer because we're doing background checks on everybody who's a volunteer out there. We're not gonna have people around kids if we don't have a background check on them. And so I've done my background, well, he'll do my background check, chief's name's on there, all employees, everybody. But we've had quite a few volunteers so far, and I know there's some others that have said they were gonna sign up, so. It'd be nice if we had 200 volunteers, so each kid had somebody with them to help them. Great. Probably not gonna happen.
It's in March, right?
March 7th.
March 7th.
The more we get, the better. Even if we get it down to where we have 2 kids per volunteer, I think we'll be in good shape with 2. Councilman Midstate's gonna bring us fillet knives, so if they catch illegal fish and they wanna keep it, he's gonna cut them up and send them home for them.
Yes, indeed.
I'm learning new things about kids fish. It's making me more excited.
So we're gonna have Lions Club is feeding the kids. We're gonna have some other entertainment type things going on because 4 hours of fishing for a 3-year-old probably not gonna keep them occupied. So we're gonna do a few other things too. But we're planning on having all kinds of good stuff out. The city, business in the city really got behind this and helped out with what the council put in and what they put in. We've been able to do a lot for these kids. So it's been great.
It's awesome. Anyone else?
Yes, sir. Light note, Friday, it's Valentine's Day. Don't forget it. That's all. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for your thoughts and prayers for the First Lady, and it's going to be a very special Valentine's for us, as is Heart Month this month, and so thank you again. Anyone else? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, if you'll call the time. 8:23, we'll adjourn the regular meeting and move into the executive session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You ready? Ladies and gentlemen, we're returning from executive session at approximately 8:27. Madam Clerk, was that coincide with your time? 9:27, thank you. And there'll be no action taken from executive session, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.